We also have the stick and rudder power off stall explanation, a stumble. In the various glides and climbs, if the various glides and climbs are gates, the stall must be called a stumble. It's not a flight condition, but is the contrary of flight. The airplane stops flying and starts to fall. Our picture catches this stumble at the exact moment when it occurs. It's a snapshot as if it were taken at just a critical moment. Other pictures in this chapter illustrate steady conditions which the airplane can maintain indefinitely. This picture shows a condition which lasts only a moment. Just before the picture was taken, the airplane was in a very slow, very mushing glide. The pilot then attempted to fly the ship too slowly at too high an angle of attack, and this brought on the condition shown with the angle of attack greatly exaggerated in our picture. Note that the airplane points slightly above the horizon, but that its actual path is steeply down. Remember, the angle of attack is the difference between where the airplane points and where, in the up and down sense, it goes. The angle of attack in this cause is excessive. This is not the result of the stall, but the cause. Meeting the air at this excessive angle of attack, the wings no longer succeed in deflecting it downward. They merely disturb it. Hence, they make no lift and the airplane begins to fall. Note how the pilot got into this trouble. He holds the stick hard back, and the flippers on the airplane's tail are sharply up. It is this upward deflection of the flippers that forces the ship to assume the excessive angle of attack, and it is the excessive angle of attack that caused the burbling of the airflow on the wings and the collapse of lift. Immediately after the moment caught on our illustration, the airplane will drop from lack of lift, as indicated by the flight direction arrow. While it drops, it will also nose down, despite anything the pilot may do to keep it from nosing down. It will thus attempt to recover speed, attempt to reduce its angle of attack. If the pilot then relaxes his back pressure against the stick and thus allows the flippers to return to neutral, the airplane will succeed in making a recovery. It will come out into a steep gliding descent from which it can then easily be brought back to a normal glide or a mushing glide or any other desired flight condition. If the pilot keeps holding the stick back as the airplane drops and its nose dips earthward, the airplane will not succeed in making a recovery. If it is an exceptionally well-behaved airplane, it will simply nose up into a new stall and will drop again. If it is less well-behaved, it will go into a spin. In any case, as long as the pilot keeps holding the stick back, he keeps the airplane at stalling angle of attack, and hence in trouble. Unfortunately, as the airplane drops out from under the pilot, and as its nose dips earthward, the pilot's instinctive reaction will be to haul back all the harder on the stick. If his imagination works with faulty images, and if he imagines that the stick is the airplane's up and down control, he can hardly help hauling back on the stick. This his instinctive reaction will be especially impulsive and uncontrollable if the pilot has failed to sense the coming of the stall and the stall takes him by surprise, and that is the real danger of stalling. This faulty reaction to the stall, rather than the stall itself. It is quite rare that a pilot is killed simply because he stalled, but it happens with tragic monotony that a pilot is killed because stalled when he did not expect it. He either fails to recognize the stall for what it is, or fails to control that impulsive desire to haul back on the stick. He clamps the stick back against his stomach in a terrified cramp-like effort to hold the airplane up, and thereby makes the stall worse or converts into a spin. The airplane, once stalled, must go down. Only by sacrificing altitude can it regain speed quickly enough, as will be explained in more detail in another chapter of the book. And the airplane's stick must be allowed to come forward. The whole trouble started only because the stick was too far back. As long as the stick is too far back, the wings can't make lift. When an airplane is stalled, nothing, absolutely nothing, will help except the one thing: get the stick forward. You might think, for example, that you could regain speed by slamming your throttle wide open, but it will not help as long as the stick is back. It will merely convert the stall into a slightly more vicious power stall, or the spin into a power spin. you will keep going down out of control just the same. If a different once the stick has been, it's different once the stick has been allowed to come forward and the airplane's angle of attack is reduced, then wide open throttle makes it possible to complete one's recovery with quite small loss of altitude. But the stick must come forward first. In stall and recovery practice, student pilots are sometimes required to keep the stick hard back for a while, delay their recovery, and meanwhile practice how to maintain a semblance of control over a stalled airplane even while it drops, so as to keep it from spinning. It consists of a continuous, quick, juggling sort of footwork on the rudder, but even if it isn't spinning, the airplane is still stalled and still dropping, and is bound to get away from the pilot and to spin as soon as he makes his first mistake in his juggling, which won't be long. Thus, it is not really the answer to the stall. When you are stalled, there is one thing that can really help you accept the inevitable loss of altitude and get the stick forward. It has been stated above that the stall is not a steady gait, but a stumble, that an airplane cannot be in this condition except for a moment and will either recover or go into a spin. This may seem contrary to the experience of some pilot who may claim that he often put his airplane into a gentle stall and then descended into stall condition for a while before making recovery. The answer is contained in our picture. Most modern airplanes are so designed that the whole wing will not stall all at once. When the airplane's angle of attack becomes excessive, the inner part, each wing, near the fuselage, stalls, while the outer part, near the tip, keeps making lift. When the eddies flow off the stalled portion of the wings strike the airplane's tail, they often shake the whole airplane. In other ways, too, the pilot can sense that the stalling has begun. But the non-stalled part of the wing continues to give him lift, stability, and control, and thus enables him to maintain steady descent. It is really an extreme form of mushing glide rather than a stall. Part of the wing is stalled, the airplane as a whole is not stalled, though very near the stall. If an airplane has the opposite stalling characteristics and its wings stall at the tips first, it is tricky to fly. It will stall with little advance warning. The stall will render its ailerons worse than useless and will almost instantly develop into a spin.